Hi boys and girls, I want to review finding volume of irregular shapes. This was lesson 6. You did it in Zern yesterday. This is the same thing. It looks a little bit different than how it was presented in Zern, but it's the same concept of taking a shape and splitting it as two different rectangular prisms. So that way you can put them together to find the total volume. So the concept is still the same, and in this video I'm going to show you how to do it. And after watching this video, you're going to complete the formative worksheet and do it on your own. So grab your pencil and paper to work with me. Here we go. So let's take a look at number 1. We see we have the shape here, and what we're going to do each time is we're going to be splitting our shapes into two rectangles. So we take this shape here, and I'm just going to draw with my pen here so you can see this as being split into two different shapes. We're going to find the volume of both of these separate shapes, and then we're just going to add them together. So remember that volume, which I know you know, is length times width times height. Okay, so let's just remember that. All right, let's take our shapes. So you can see that we have these different numbers around the outside. We just have to determine which numbers go with which shape. So this here, this 3, is telling us that that is the measurement for the first shape over here, okay? That is our width or length, it doesn't really matter, of our first shape. This first rectangle here is 3, and it tells us here this length here or width, again doesn't matter, is 5. Now as far as height for this entire worksheet, there's no numbers, we just count how many layers there are. So the height in here you can see is 2 because there are 2 layers. So to find the volume of this first shape here, we're just going to do 3 times 5 times 2, length times width times height. So I'll come up here, 3 times 5 times 2. And of course, 3 times 5 is 15, and 15 times 2 is 30. You might have to work some of these problems out, so don't be lazy, you can do it. All right, so what we just figured out is that this first shape here is 30. Now we have to take a look and we have to find the volume of our second shape. It tells us this is 3, and we know the height here is 2 layers. The problem is it's not 7. 7 was the entire thing. So we just have to do a little subtraction to figure out our length over here, or our width, either way. So if the whole from top to bottom is 7, and this one took up 3 of those centimeters, then you simply have to take the whole minus what you used on this bottom shape. So 7 minus 3, which of course equals 4. That tells me that for this shape up top, we're going to use that number 4 instead. Now we'll multiply our length times width times height, so we're going to do our 3 times 4 times 2. 3 times 4 times 2, and of course 3 times 4 is 12, and times 2 makes 24. Now that we found the volume of each individual shape, we just have to combine them, put them together, add them to get our total volume. So 0 plus 4 is 4, 3 plus 2 is 5, and of course we need our unit. It is centimeters cubed, or cubic centimeters. All right, let's move on to number 2. Number 2 here again, we have this irregular shape, so we're going to split it in half. Now, obviously when you're working on an actual paper, you can use your pen. When you're doing the formative worksheet, which is digital, you just have to visualize them as 2 different shapes. So let's take a look. Our height for all of this, let's count our layers, is 1, 2, 3. So we know our height for this entire thing is 3. So let's take a look at our bottom. It tells us here, this is just this measurement here. So we're going to do our length times width, 3 times 5, and of course our height is 3. So that's 3 times 5 times 3. And of course 3 times 5 is 15, and 15 times 3 is 45. Again, you might have to work some of that out. That means this is 45 here. Now we're going to take a look for our next one. We know our height is 3 layers. We know we have this 4 here. We're back to the same thing. The 7 represents a total from top to bottom, and I split it in half here, or maybe not quite half, but I split it here. Okay, and so I don't want to use the 7. I have to figure out which number I'm going to use. If I already used 3 of those centimeters to make up this bottom shape, and the total was 7, then it's just 7 minus 3, which is 4. So for this one, kind of like the other, we're going to use that number 4. So 4 times 4 times our height of 3. 4 times 4 times 3. 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 3 is 48. So the next thing we have to do is we just have to take our individual volumes and add them together. So I'll come over here, 48 plus 45. 8 plus 5, of course, is 13. Regroup. 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Don't forget your unit, 93 centimeters cubed or cubic centimeters. All right, let's try another one. Take a look over here. Again, split our shape, either visually if we're doing it digitally, but on paper I can make that line to show you. Let's take a look at our first shape here. Remember that this is just this first shape here, so we're going to do length times width, 5 times 4, and of course the height for this entire shape is 2 layers. So 5 times 4 times 2. 5 times 4 is 20, and of course 20 times 2 is 40. Okay, so we know that this is 40 centimeters. Now we're going to look for our top one. We know it's 3 here. We know we have a layer of 2, but we're back to this. 9 represents the entire top to bottom. We already used 5 for the first one. Therefore, 9 minus 5, there's 4 left. Okay, so this one is 3 times 4 times 2. And of course, 3 times 4 is 12, and 12 times 2 is 24. When we add these together, 40 plus 24, and we get 48 centimeters cubed. Oh, I'm sorry, mistake, 68 centimeters cubed, okay, or cubic centimeters. So okay, Mrs. Tapp, let's try that again. 64 centimeters cubed. Sorry, I'm trying to do the math and hold my phone and record and talk. So this is kind of new for me. All right, let's move over to our number 4. Again, we're splitting it into 2 different shapes. So I'll draw that line here so you can see where that gets split. Length times width times height. Our height for this entire figure is 2 layers, so our height is always going to be 2. We can see this represents this measurement here. So 2 times 4 times our height of 2. 2 times 4 is 8, times 2 is 16 centimeters. So we know that this is 16 here. Okay, we take a look at our top shape. We can see we have our 2, and we know our height is 2, but again, 5 is top to bottom, so we take out what we already used. 5 minus 2 means there's still 3 centimeters in this top part. So now we can do length times width times height. Okay, 3 times 2 times 2. Of course, as we've said before when we were learning volume, it doesn't matter the order you put them in, you're still going to get the same answer. 3 times 2 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 times 2 is 12. Now we just have to take our 2 individual volumes and combine them and add them together. So 16 plus 12, 6 plus 2 is 8, and 1 plus 1 is 2. And of course, don't forget, centimeters cubed or cubic centimeters. All right, scroll out so you can see. We have 2 more left to do, so stay with me because you're going to have to do this on your own. So what I'd love for you to do right now, though, is pause the video, do these last 2 problems on your own, and then you can compare your answers. So pause your video, solve number 5 and number 6 on your own on just paper and pencil, and then you can compare my work and answers to your work and answers. Remember, making mistakes is okay. We have to learn from them. So do the work and let's see. All right, here we go. Splitting our shape into 2 parts. Length times width times height. Let's take a look at this first one here. We have 5 times 3, and of course our height is 2 layers. So 5 times 3 times 2. 5 times 3 is 15, and 15 times 2 is 30, so we have 30 centimeters here. Okay, now let's take a look at our next one. We know we have 2 and 2, but again, We're not using the total 7 because that's top to bottom. So take those 5 centimeters out that we already used. 7 minus 5 is 2. So now we have all of our dimensions. 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. And then, of course, when we add these together, 30 plus 8 is 38 centimeters cubed, or cubic centimeters. Hopefully you got that same answer. Last one together. Here we go. Make my 2 independent shapes. Let's take a look. Length times width times height. I can see the height for this entire shape is 2 layers, so it's always going to be 2. So 5 times 5 times 2. 5 times 5, of course, is 25, and 25 times 2 is 50. Okay, so we know that this one here is 50 centimeters. Now we'll take a look at our next shape here. We have our dimension of 2, and we know 2 is the height, but we're not using the total 9. So take out the centimeters we already used. 9 minus 5, which equals 4. That means this one is 4 centimeters. Now we have all the numbers we need to put together. 4 times 2 times 2. And again, doesn't really matter the order. 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 2 is 16. So when I add these together, 50 plus 16 is 66 centimeters cubed. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is finding area of irregular rectangular prisms. All right, good luck on your formative worksheet. Reach out to me if you need help.